right, first up this morning, a Facebook post from one of our own that has people all over the country fired up. And before we tell you what it's all about, both Molly and I are going to tell you that some viewers can say some pretty harsh things about people who are on TV.
Yeah, absolutely. A few weeks ago, today's TMJ4 Daybreak Anchor Susan Kim got a note from a viewer who said Susan looked pregnant in a dress she was wearing, especially when she held her scripts a certain way below her belly. Well, Susan took this picture of herself that day and posted it along with a reply. She first said she wasn't offended and thanked the viewer for her feedback, but later the comment made her feel a little bit sad.
Yeah, and hundreds of people weighed in on Facebook about that post, and tens of thousands of people viewed that response. So today, we invited Susan to join us with her thoughts on the post that's gone viral and find out how she feels about the impact that she's had, especially on women. Because that's why you posted this. I think one of the neat things that you kept responding to people as they were complimenting you on your post is that, hey, let's bring it back to the issue. This isn't about me. This is about what people hold women to as a standard, and that seems to be the direction that you really want to discuss, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, I just wanted to open it up to a conversation because obviously the subject about how people view women and how women view themselves, it's not necessarily a new thing, but I feel like a lot of stride has been made in terms of just educating people about healthy body image, educating girls about having a healthy body image, and then to have that comment from a viewer about my body just kind of brought it back like, hey, have we not really come that far? Are our standards still really high? Do women have to look perfect, whether it's your neighbor or whether it's somebody you watch on TV? Do they have to have that perfect body image to not get a criticism or to not get that kind of comment that, hey, you look pregnant, or you know, it could have been something else. But I think we've all heard that as women, and it's just not fair, because I think as women we try to be healthy, we try to do our best. We're busy, we're juggling things, and why do we have to be perfect to be void of criticism from others?
You know, I have so many thoughts about this, but you know, there's so many articles written after celebrities have babies about how quickly they lose the baby weight, and then how quickly they can get in a bikini and look fantastic and have a flat stomach. And I think a lot of people who have babies end up feeling really bad when they compare themselves to standards that they just simply can't achieve. And I was thinking about your post, and one of the things that you so honestly shared was that you've had 3 kids. I have 2, but you gained 50 to 60 pounds with each one of your pregnancies. You also, with your second, were on steroids, and so you even said, I had this big flap of skin I'll never get rid of because of it. And I just thought it was so honest and genuine. Why did you decide to reveal so much about yourself and your experience with your pregnancies?
Well, I think sometimes it's too much, right? But I felt like in this case it kind of lended itself to that, because I'm comfortable with how I look, and I think that a lot of moms out there feel really good about themselves. I mean, having kids and gaining weight and losing the weight and just trying to be a healthy person, I mean, that's quite a feat. And so I feel good about where I'm at in my life, and I think other moms do feel good about themselves. And so I felt like it was important to share this piece of information, because maybe that's why this viewer felt I looked like I was pregnant and I shouldn't hold my scripts a certain way if I didn't want people to notice that bulge or flap or, whatever phrase
so maybe unconsciously you were trying to cover that area and you didn't even realize it, do you think?
No,
or no?
I mean, I think I was just, that's the way I stand. And so I guess it's more that, okay, so if I'm fine with how I look, I've had 3 kids and I'm in my late 40s, what do I have to look like to not get that kind of criticism? And not just me, other women too. I mean, there are a lot of moms out there who have had kids, and and they look great. So why isn't that enough? Why can't we just say you look great, as opposed to, oh, this or that, or I see a little bit of flab over there? I mean, really, I think as women we should all just be happy that we're moms and we're working and we're doing a lot of things.
Well, there's 2 issues I think we should talk about. First, women and women first, because I don't, one thing, we talk about this a lot in TV. You get a lot of comments like that where people say, oh my gosh, you look so much better in person. TV's not good to you. And then it's like, ooh, was that rude? yeah, it kind of was, you know? So, I mean, people know, they just sort of, verbal, say things that they don't really think about how it's going to sound sometimes until they say it. But this was a written comment, and it was from a woman. And one of the things that, Molly and I talk about, and something that I stand really strong for, is the fact that women need to be responsible responsible for what they do to other women. They need to support other women, empower other women instead of break them down. I think it speaks to this fact that that comment was from a female and it wasn't from a man. Do you think that in general women need to watch how they judge other women? Is that part of the issue too?
I think so, and I think that, you know, as women, we all try to be positive of each other and try to send a positive message, because I, like you, I mean, I want us to build each other up, support each other, you know, mentor each other, whatever it is, whatever word you want to describe. And so I do think that that's a little surprising, because the same viewer also said to compliment Vince on his tie, and that just made me laugh. But then I was flabbergasted at the same time. It's like, you know, Vince, my co-anchor, and it was, you know, okay, so you took the time to notice how I look in a negative way, but then you want to make sure to tell my male co-anchor. And I don't know that, you know, this viewer was thinking about it in that way. And, you know, it's one of the many great things about being on the air. People feel like they know you. And so, and we love that. But at the same time, there are some things that, as women, I think we should just take a second and just be like, okay, well, let's try to stay positive and not take, you know, the time to kind of beat each other up a little bit.
Well, I think that people who are on television or put themselves in the public eye in whatever way that they do, that there's this understanding out there, this unspoken understanding that you can go ahead and criticize people, and that you're kind of, you know, you have this thick skin and that it doesn't affect how you feel about yourself. And one of the things that I think is fascinating about this is, in person, you're an extremely petite, small person. And so it's, for so many people who work here, it was just so shocking that someone would be critical of you. And a lot of people ended up complimenting you, like, oh, I think you're beautiful, you're a classy woman, you're extremely small. And people who work here know how petite and small you are, but that's not really the point. I know, and I know you weren't looking for compliments, but, you know, articles have been written. I know you were on Charlie Sykes' show talking about this. So many people responded, and I wonder, did it affect how you feel about yourself at all? And did you ever hear from that viewer who posted the initial or asked that question on Facebook initially?
Yeah, I mean, she did respond the next day after she saw the comments starting to pour in with that post, and, you know, she apologized and said that she didn't mean for me to take it that way, and that she thinks that I do a good job, which is very nice. But I just, you know, it's just the initial comment. I think that we all just have to take a step back as women and men or whoever, and think, do we really need to be negative about something like that? And really, what is the perception of that you have of what people should look like? I mean, you know, the Today Show is doing this great series, and they did a survey that found 80% of teenage girls criticize themselves to another person at least, you know, once a month. And so, you know, as moms of daughters, you know, you want your girls to grow up with a positive body image, and that doesn't have to be Hollywood perfect. It can just be, as long as you're healthy and you're happy with who you are, that's what's important. And I think that really was something that I wanted to get across. It's really how you feel about yourself, if you're good with it, and teaching our daughters to have a healthy image of how they look and what is a healthy woman and what that woman should be like.
And I think it starts with not criticizing ourselves, particularly in front of our kids, which I think is huge.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Great points. Coming up after the break, we're going to continue the conversation with Susan. We've also invited a body image expert to join us, and we're going to share a test that shows how people really feel about their bodies. Stay tuned for that. Well, we are just chatting away. I think we're fired up. Susan Kim's here, her Facebook post that went viral, and we also have Dr. Stephen Franzoi, who is a professor of psychology at Marquette University.
Yeah, he's also an expert on body esteem and physical appearance, including how men and women perceive body images differently. 3 of his books on this subject actually have been used in colleges all over the country, and we're so excited to have both of you guys hanging out with us a little bit longer and you joining us. Just initially, what's your take on Susan's post and the reaction responses that she got?
Well, I think it's very typical. I mean, the fact that even in the 21st century, people are still commenting on professional women in terms of their physical appearance, often more so than in terms of their intellectual abilities, their skill sets, and everything else. So it's a comment made by a viewer that generally isn't made for men at all. And you know, your responses, I think, are and especially, you know, we were talking over the break about the way you talk to your daughters. I think, you know, that there's ways that we can reshape the conversation on these issues that are maybe healthier. Yeah.
Well, I think that lends itself to the next question is where does it come from us? Does it come from our parents? Does it come from, because there was no conversation like that in our family. You know, I don't think a lot of us have experienced that. Many people have. Or does it come from our friends, from media, from magazines? Where does it come from?
Well, you know, actually, I think it does come from our families. It comes from the culture. It permeates the culture, and it's so much so that it's like we're fish that don't realize we're wet in this regard. We live in a gendered culture, and the first thing we ask about a newborn is a boy or girl, and we have beliefs about what boys are like, what girls are like, how they should appear. We set their rooms up in a certain way, and this one of the beliefs is that women should be judged on their appearance often more so than men are. And so when men and women think about themselves, when boys and girls think about themselves, boys are more likely to think about their bodies as instruments of action. The way the body moves is a process, whereas girls are socialized to think about themselves because of the way their parents talk to them, the way that their friends talk to them, the way they look at the things in popular culture, in terms of how their body looks. So they begin to think of their bodies as beauty objects. And you know, so it isn't any surprise when we find that at 5 years of age, girls start to think negatively about their body and make negative comments about their body.
That young.
Yeah,
so sad.
yeah. And you know, fat talk. Heterosexual men do not engage in fat talk. Gay men engage in fat talk.
A lot.
Lesbians tend not to engage in fat talk. Heterosexual women engage in fat talk. I think there's something that we can learn from that, and one of the things is that who people are trying to please often depends on how they look at their bodies. If women and men are trying to please a romantic partner who's a man, they generally tend to view their bodies more in terms of beauty objects, and they tend to feel more negative about it. Whereas the other side, if the woman is the romantic partner, the partner is less likely to think of themselves in that way. So.
Go ahead, Susan.
I was just going to say, I think that there is a difference between having pride in how you look and taking the time, and then having this expectation or trying to live up to a public's expectation. And I guess my question to you is you know, you talked about how a female instructor has to have different standards and worry about different things than a male instructor. And it's like, how do we change that conversation?
Right, and it is a reality. I mean, we judge people based on their physical appearance. When we meet somebody like that, we make a judgment on their physical attractiveness, their age, everything else. So I'm not saying that physical appearance isn't important, but to define oneself in those terms over other qualities that are much more important gets you into trouble. So with women in our doctoral program who are going to be teachers and are going to be in front of students, we have to talk to them about the fact that they're going to be getting certain criticisms and certain assessments that the male teachers are not going to be getting. And then how do you deal with that? And one thing it does is it causes you to have to think about things while you're trying to prepare and talk about, you know, psychology and other intellectual topics that the male instructors don't have to be thinking about.
Doctor, because they talked about this so much during the break, you know, especially mothers with daughters, and there's a lot of moms who are at home thinking about this conversation with their own daughters. What can parents say to their girls? Is it constant reinforcing how beautiful they are and how good of a person they are, and reinforcing the characteristics that make their character and quality stronger? Or is it also complimenting on their looks? What do we do as parents?
I think Susan said during the break something about the way she talks to her daughters about, you know, things. She doesn't bring up the issues of, you know, using words like thin and pretty and all these things. I mean, you can bring up, you know, the person looks pretty and person looks cute, but think about it in terms of with your sons and daughters. Do you do more so with one versus the other? And if you're doing that, what sort of message are you sending to your children that being pretty and attractive is important for girls but not for boys? You know, you have to make those decisions because they're going to internalize that, and it's going to affect what they think is important, how they're going to define themselves, and what they're going to strive for in terms of, you know, trying to achieve what they think is their potential.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, for example, you don't use fat and skinny at home.
I do not use those words with my girls. I just talk about being healthy and exercising and just having a healthy life, because I feel like as long as the message from me is consistent in terms of a healthy life is what's important, and being a good person and having a good heart, as long as they get that message from me at home, it won't matter so much what they hear from other people outside the house, because in the end, mom, dad, whoever the guardian is in a child's life, that message is the most important. And correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like the message from home is the most important that your child will get.
The message is very important. That's critical in forming those early impressions, but it is also true that the larger culture has a big impact, and once your daughters get older, their peer groups are going to be more and more influential, and among adolescents, it's the peer groups that really shape their thinking and their behavior, even if it's not the same as what their parents are saying. So, I mean, it's critically important for parents to set that groundwork for the children, but they also, need to be mindful that the children are going to be getting influenced by other people outside of the household.
Well, Molly, you have girls in that age range where they are starting to be influenced by their teens, because they're kind of in that teenage years. How do you combat that?
One way is not criticizing myself. Yeah. I'm very cautious or careful about not saying, oh, I look fat in this, or oh, I don't like the way I look in this, because that makes them feel bad, I think. And my girls are both built so differently that my message to them is always that they both look fantastic, and I try to focus on their character and things that they do and accomplishments that they have and the type of people that they are, and that I love them no matter what. And it's you're fighting a lot of things, especially now having a high school student. They get a lot of messages that are negative about body image.
We're out of time. I think we could continue this forever, but we want to invite Facebook viewers to go to our Facebook page and post a question or a comment or something that you want to add to the conversation, because we'll have a chance a little bit later to talk about those responses. Thank you guys so much for being here.
Thank you.
I feel like we should have done an hour on this easily.
Yeah, and I also wanted to mention that you have a body esteem survey on your website, and you can go to our website and find it, and people can kind of take it and look at it and kind of analyze how they feel about their body and the functions of their body.
Yep.
It's fantastic. Thanks both of you so much.
Sure.